How what's up, y'all? It's Poppin' It's D. About to react to this vid by Hello Yassine. This is the rapper who confessed to a forgotten murder after 17 years. On the thumbnail, it says "Bad Boy." Is this Johnny Depp? Depp? Johnny? Get smacked silly. That's that dude. What the hell? I didn't know he killed somebody. Let's see what happened. Let's watch.
A rapper that was signed and had a song with P. Diddy walked into the 25th precinct on December 15, 2010 and confessed to shooting a man 17 years earlier. He was convicted of second-degree murder and sent to prison for 15 years to life.
What?
Travell Coleman was born on November 19, 1974 and grew up with his grandmother in the James Weldon Johnson housing projects. He grew up in the real ghetto, amongst a lot of criminal activity and the availability of drugs. He was known by the name G-Dep, short for Ghetto Dependent. He began his rapping career with Tape Kings and released 2 vinyl records in 95 and 96. Soon after, he met Sean Combs, who was already big at the time, and he signed G-Dep with Bad Boy Records for $350,000 in a 5-album deal. The next year, G-Dep appeared in 2 songs of Black Rob's debut album. He released his solo debut album for Bad Boy Records on November 20th, 2001, and it was called Child of the Ghetto. The album did not too great. It was 106th on the Billboard 200. The single from the debut album, Special Delivery, became relatively popular, and it got to number 3 on the Hot Rap Singles charts. G-Dep became one of the renowned names of Bad Boy Records and brought a lot of attention to the label. But the label had to let him go because of excessive dependence on drugs. It needs to be said that Bad Boy Records found G-Dep at a very good time, and Travell did help the label out after Biggie died. G-Dep also helped Diddy to lift his career as well, and he was signed by Diddy and featured in his music video Let's Get It too. But after Bad Boys cut ties with G-Dep, he had been looking for a new label that would sign him. G-Dep was building up a rap sheet for criminal activities. He had 25 criminal offenses, including grand larceny, drug offenses, and burglary since 2003. Also, he had been convicted and imprisoned in Rikers Island for robbery. G-Dep was mostly under the influence during this time and was dealing with personal issues. After the release of Child of the Ghetto, he began struggling with PCP addiction for a long time.
PCP!
The gangsta life he glorified in his songs with raps like Keep It Gangsta, which include lyrics like Keeping America High and Why Wouldn't I, Gangsters Don't Talk, We Beat the Case and Walk. It's the same lifestyle that tormented and disturbed him. He regretted everything good in his life, thinking that the success he had...
The only thing I could think of PCP was for Friday, from the movie. That was Friday, right? Was it next Friday? Where Smokey was talking about how they got him addicted, or not addicted, but they like laced his weed or something with PCP, and they like had him locked in a pigeon cage or some shit, and he was like tweaking and like scratching. So when I'm thinking of PCP, I'm thinking of like some hardcore like crackhead shit. So I don't know much about drugs like that other than weed, so I can't speak on it, but that sounds like some hardcore shit.
Wasn't actually deserved. He was a married man with children, but he had been wrestling with his conscience for some time. His life spiraled into disarray with a slate of arrests on drugs, trespassing, and other charges. G-Dep's Bad Boy days were long gone. Almost a decade gone by since his first album release. In 2010, he signed up with Famous Records to release his second album, Ghetto Legends. Everyone was talking about the Harlem-based rapper that knew him from his time at Bad Boy. And the release was supposed to be a return back to the scene and an elevation to mainstream. I'm thrilled that I finally chose Famous Records as my new label, and I'm quietly confident that with Mr. Collins' vast experience in the music industry, that Famous will be my home for some time to come. Only good things will come from this move. But that grand return was short-lived. The Harlem rapper had a deep and dark secret that ate away at him for years and made him confess to a criminal act that he somehow got away with. Travell Coleman reopened a cold case that was forgotten about by everyone. On December 15, 2010, G-Dep walked into the New York precinct and told the officers that he was the gunman in the murder of a Queens man in 1993.
I would have to take that.
He even told the police that he actually tried confessing twice before, but he was sent back because the police thought he was too drunk and too high and was incapable of giving any confession. Travell had dropped out of school at the age of 18 in search of a music career. He funded recording sessions by selling coke on the streets of Harlem. He dabbled in drugs himself, and for $500 he had bought a gun. In the fall of '93, a month before his 19th birthday, Coleman used that gun to mug a stranger. G-Dep was riding his bicycle when he encountered John Henkel near a subway station of James Weldon Johnson housing projects on Park Avenue and East 114th Street, and pulled out his .40 caliber pistol trying to intimidate the victim to hand over his cash. He was standing under the scaffolding on Park Avenue, 114th Street. I was riding my bike. I told him, "Give me the money." He was kind of, unresponsive. The guy grabbed the gun, and I pulled the gun back, and that's when I fired. And the guy winced, and I didn't know what happened. Henkel tried to disarm G-Dep by grabbing the gun, but G-Dep pulled himself away and fired 3 shots. Travell didn't look where the shots hit. He immediately ran back to his bike and fled the scene. He didn't even know if the man was fatally wounded. He went around the block and came back after a while and looked from afar to see that there was a crowd with police vehicles standing by. He then backed up his bike and left. The next few days there were police in the neighborhood asking questions. The police even stopped G-Dep and asked about the shooting, and he said that he knew nothing of it. G-Dep thought the man didn't die as the police said the word shooting rather than murder. He threw away his pistol in the East River a few days later. For years, G-Dep had no idea whether Henkel had lived or died, though he later realized that he was indeed guilty of murder. What makes the case so baffling is that he initially got away with the crime, but while he might have lived in peace and under the radar, the ex-rapper subsequently revealed that the crime took a toll on him, as he struggled for years with drugs and built up an arrest record even after a successful music career. The incident simply wouldn't leave his thoughts, as he was plagued by what unfolded. It was after completing a 30-day recovery program in 2010 that Travell said that he recognized he wasn't adequately tackling his past. A lot of people were really cleansing their souls and really getting to the root of their problems. I was not. I would just be embellishing, telling stories about getting high. I wasn't being totally honest. After confessing, he went on trial, was convicted of second-degree murder, and was sentenced on May 8th, 2012 to 15 years in prison. I think I was just at a point where enough is enough. It never went away, me thinking about it, so it was like I had to do something about it. His confession even disturbed the family of the victim, because it brought back a lot of bad memories. The admission reportedly even led family members of Henkel to criticize G-Dep for speaking out, saying that the revelation brought painful memories back to the surface. G-Dep felt that admitting the crime was the right thing to do, with his attorneys acknowledging at the time that many thought the decision was foolish. Conscience drove him to do something. He thinks he did the right thing, his attorney told the Associated Press. There's a lot of people who think he's a fool for doing this. He doesn't think he's a fool. He says this has been like a blessing. It saved his life. I couldn't move on and keep trying to satisfy myself if I didn't deal with that, he told XXL in a jailhouse interview. I didn't know what was going to be the outcome, but that was the only way I knew to deal with it. The victim had grabbed the rapper's .40 caliber gun and he pulled it back and fired at the man 3 times. G-Dep told authorities in a recorded statement played during his trial. After the gunfire, he said he rode off on a bicycle, unsure whether he had been struck. G-Dep didn't testify at his trial. Authorities paired his account with the 1993 death of Henkel, aged 32. He was shot 3 times with a .40 caliber gun at the same corner in October of 1993 when G-Dep was nearing his 19th birthday. The more you study the evidence, you'll see it just matches up too greatly for coincidence. However, G-Dep's lawyer questioned whether the police had made the correct match. He pointed out differences between G-Dep's statement and Henkel's shooting, such as the rapper's claim that the shooting occurred in February or March, rather than the fall, and his description of the victim as blonde and clean-shaven, although Henkel had brown hair and had facial hair.
It was 17
The rapper
years
claims he has no way of knowing whether Henkel was the man he shot. According to the lawyer, he eventually filled in some of the specifics with the information provided by the police. G-Dep turned down a plea bargain in exchange for a guaranteed 15-year-to-life term, which is now the bare minimum he faces. Regardless, he remains convinced he did the right thing by coming forward. He has a conscience and a heart, and his conscience and his heart brought him to where he is today, his lawyer said after court. He's probably making the most powerful statement of a rapper that his era can make, which is to be accountable and to do the right thing. After signing up with Bad Boys, Travell had a daughter and a girlfriend, but after that relationship ended, he met Crystal Sutton at a club. The couple was married in 2004 and had twin boys. He had experienced fame, fortune, and a family, but his guilt was eating away at him. It seemed like it just wasn't fair for me to be happy, he said. I used to curb my happiness, like just, wait a minute, I'm smiling too much. I'm laughing too much. I felt like I couldn't really tell anybody. I didn't want them to be involved. Burdened by what happened, his music suffered, and Diddy dropped him from his bad boy label. It probably was the drugs, he said. I was just knee deep in trying to medicate myself and not feel, and numb myself to whatever I was dealing with. After he confessed his crime, his family was in disbelief. I was like, no, that's not Travell. That's not even in his character to do that. He's a kind, loving person. After the case was made public, Diddy talked about it in December of 2010 on Sirius XM Radio Shade 45. G-Dep is one of the nicest artists I ever worked with. You could always feel like something was troubling his soul because he was real quiet. But he's the type of guy who wouldn't hurt a fly. He did the right thing and manned up to it. But my prayers go out to him. He had a real bad drug problem, and that could have caused that situation. The editor-in-chief of GQ served as the jury foreman in the murder trial of John Henkel and has written about the case. You have to concede that the man probably lived in a jail in his house in his head for 18 years. The hard part about this case is that it involves a guy who didn't really need to come forward. Who did? I mean, he needed to come forward for his conscience, but we were wrestling with this as jurors because we kind of thought, why did you come forward? Our mission is very, very specific. Is this guy guilty? And I wrestled with that because I knew he was. I just didn't almost feel worthy of passing judgment on this guy. He did kill. I don't go into this with rose-colored glasses. I completely understand that for the people who knew John Henkel, it's a different story, and we have to keep that in mind. The jury found him guilty of second-degree murder, and on May 8, 2012, he was sentenced. He was 38 years old. The case of Travell Coleman has haunted me, Nelson said. I think the guy got a bad shake. I think he did something honorable and society punished him for it. Travell separated from his wife in 2008, but Sutton said she's still standing by him. She said she's still in doubt that her husband shot Henkel, but is now a different man. It's a different Travell to me, not on drugs. He feels freer, and you can tell by talking to him. He sounds a lot better, like the Travell I first met. Caring, loving, trying to do what he can. So 12 years after the verdict was given against G-Dep, the assistant district attorney of the case made a request to pardon him from his imprisonment, saying it was too harsh. He reached out to a clemency attorney at City University. And after that clemency attorney, Steve Zeidman, sent a letter to the judge of the Coleman case, he learned that the judge had already reached out to the current state governor. Currently, Travell is married to Letitia Evans at the moment, and they've been married for 6 years, exchanging vows at Elmira Correction Facilities. Coleman's wife is also a rapper known as Hustle Bunny. We still haven't seen the outcome of whether he will be pardoned, but he's been serving time for at least 10 years now.
Wow, this is wild. I mean, that's very honorable of him to do, but clearly it only helped him. I don't even want to say help because he's been in jail for 10 years now and counting, but it cleared his conscience or whatever the case. But the family was just like, what the fuck, why would you bring this back up? We don't want to go back to this. So it's not like it helped the family. I guess they didn't really care about getting justice after all this time, and they're just like, this just brings up painful memories. So it's like, should he have done this? I don't know. I would have to take this to my grave. I'm sorry. I mean, obviously I've never killed anybody, so I can't say what I would have done or how I would feel. I'm not in that situation, but yeah, this just seems wild. And it's just like, why would you turn yourself in knowing you're going to do some serious time and be away from your kids? Wouldn't it be enough to just turn your life around and do the right thing going forward and try to help as many people as you possibly can? Wouldn't that be better? Live your life a free man by trying to spread positivity in the world and do good things. No, I don't understand. But sure, I hope that, he's turned his life around and he's going to be a better person going forward. Y'all let me know what y'all think, though. Let me know what other videos you want to watch, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!